Square Enix has confirmed that they have posted massive losses this quarter. Forspoken was a bomb, Final Fantasy 16 was a bomb, Final Fantasy 7 Rebirth was a bomb. Square Enix came out and they claimed they lost like what was it, like 121 million like in the past quarter? Like, wow, that is crazy to think about that they bled so much money. And they were like wringing their hands and trying to make excuses, and people have been like throwing things at the wall, trying to explain like what's been going on. Like, oh, they don't support PC enough. Oh, PC wouldn't save Final Fantasy VII. Oh, they haven't supported Xbox. Nobody cares about Xbox. The reality is, Square Enix is failing now because of what they did back in the 90s. They decided to backstab Nintendo and support PlayStation, right? Sony gave them $100 million to create and market Final Fantasy VII, and that game was like this culturally defining landmark of the decade. It sold itself to a bunch of people who didn't traditionally play JRPGs and had no idea like what else was out there. It established the PlayStation brand and it killed Squaresoft. Right? This is the thing people don't understand about Final Fantasy VII. The thing that people aren't willing to admit is that immediately after 7 came out, the games became more and more cinematic. They became more and more overpriced. They became more and more like they lost their cost-effective edge, right? Sakaguchi was driven for the company after creating the movie Spirits Within. You had them pull stunts like announce 10 before releasing 9, right? They released 10-2, right? And the game slowly started eroding in quality, right? We went from one of like the most passionate and dedicated fan bases in gaming, right? There was a time where Final Fantasy VII was considered as good and as influential as The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time, right? There was a time where that was a real debate among the community, but Final Fantasy has fallen off, man. Like there's no denying it, and it is entirely because of SquareSoft's actions, right? Square Enix's actions, right? They have not been able to grow and evolve the brand. They are entirely reliant on like the blind nostalgia of their fanboys, and now that like a lot of them are in their 40s, right? The people who grew up playing like Final Fantasy 4 and 6 and even the original on NES, right? Those guys aren't going to be around much longer, right? Do you think Spoonie is getting fired up about playing Final Fantasy 7R Part 2? Like, no. Like, no. Like, the reality is the games have completely lost like their target audience. They have failed to innovate. They have failed to keep pace with their innovators. They have failed to like pull in a new audience. Like Square Enix has essentially demolished any relevancy their flagship franchises had, right? I don't see Final Fantasy ever recovering at this point because everything it ever did is being done better by other companies, right? You have better turn-based RPGs from Atlas, right? You have better storylines from Nintendo, right? You have like the Yakuza games producing their unique brand on the RPG formula. You have like other competitors like Dragon Quest, the sister series, right? Enix's baby, like Dragon Quest has retained its quality better than Final Fantasy has, to the point where even Westerners who traditionally didn't care for Final Dragon Quest are beginning to notice that like Dragon Quest 11 is one of the best games of the generation, right? So like why exactly is Square Enix completely incapable of learning from their mistake? Like, why exactly are they not coming right out right now and saying, we are going to produce a bunch of high quality traditional JRPGs for Nintendo hardware? Right? We're gonna put out more games like Octopath Traveler. We're gonna actually finish them this time. We're gonna put out like new interesting IPs with like all these new interests, like a new Chrono Trigger, right? Remember back in the 90s when we used to get like new RPGs all the time? Like, what about like Parasite Eve ports or like they could do all sorts of things. but they aren't going to do it. They're going to sit there and they're going to try and tell you, even as they're bleeding money, that our core audience is exclusively on PlayStation, nothing else. They are 100% going to sync with Sony. And this is the issue. Like, this is the thing I don't think people understand because I keep seeing people try and say like their downfall has something to do with woke culture or like desexualizing their female characters. No, it has nothing to do with that. This has been they have been in free fall since the 90s. Okay, like this is not anything new, right? People need to understand this. To understand what is wrong with Square Enix, you have to understand that making Final Fantasy VII a PlayStation exclusive was a mistake. Like until you accept that, like you aren't going to get anywhere. You're gonna just sit there and go like, Final Fantasy X did well, so I guess that means that they hadn't fallen off yet. Then, like, no, this isn't how this works. Like, it was a very slow decline over a period of decades. Okay. Like, again, I'm starting to see like more people start to acknowledge the failures of Square Enix, but people are like bringing up the PC and like Xbox thing specifically, but like what console did they like abandon development for again? Like what fan base did they turn their back on and try to ruin, after like a decade solid of like high quality like support? Like why exactly are we not addressing the elephant in the room? Same with all third parties, by the way. Like, why are we not addressing the elephant in the room that like none of these companies are coming out and supporting Nintendo in any meaningful capacity? It isn't because of the hardware. It isn't because of the success of the brand, right? The issue is that they are very desperate to continue this facade, this farce that Sony PlayStation is a successful gaming brand.